Welcome guys to another little video. Now, as you guys know, I have been having some issues or whatever, but I think I've got them all worked out and everything now, and things are looking a lot better. So, for the most part, we're going to see our nice little shoot script or whatever you want to call it. Can I get some rounds? Did I end up having some rounds? Or is that? Yeah, because I was. Okay. But today's video is going to be over doing a little bit of displaying an icon for your player. Like if you ever looked at World of Warcraft, you could see the player on the top of the right hand left hand screen, or when you are on Rust, you see the player's actual character on the screen. Well, most of the time they use a UI image or something of that nature, or a render image, and they have a separate model somewhere in La La Land, like way far away, so it doesn't look really stupid. Or I have a little heart here, but I can put anything that I want here. Okay, I can put I don't know, a big old stop thing right here. And what this does is, how it works is, every time that I bring up the menu, it changes it. Wait. Did it seriously not change that? Oh, it's because of it's attached to the player. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Yeah. So, if I wanted to change that, I have to go in here and change it before the compile time, or whatever you want to call it, before the game starts and my character gets instantiated and stuff like that. See, now I've got this little weird symbol, but we can put anything we want there. We can actually have a render image where it renders our character's face or whatever, but for the most part we need the logic just to be able to set something. If we want a render image where it moves around and everything else, that could be in a later video. If you guys want something like that and everything else, you're going to have to comment about it and request it, because it involves prep work and stuff like that. But for the most part, we've got an icon here, or we can put it in the top corner here, or whatever. And we're also populating this information right here. The player's name, level, stuff like that. We are actually changing the text of it, because when it starts, it's broken. Okay? So that's how that works. Alright, so when the character is instantiated, which is our little temp player, it does stuff. Okay? And that's what the video is about. Now there's going to be some math in this and everything else, and it's due to how it all works when it comes to populating the information on it, like hours, minutes, stuff like that. Now I'm pretty sure the math is fine on that, but I could be wrong on it, because math between, like doing it with a pencil on, the piece of paper to in the computer, it's kind of a little different, because you gotta do certain things, right? So we have a beginning object right here. We're going to call this character object, because it's character. Everybody's got one. I mean, I don't see why everybody wouldn't have one. Now, I have this character info object, and this one right here does get populated, but it's only once, because I want a static reference to it. Okay? Now this static reference is just minutes, hours, times, stuff like that. Now this set time, this can be called any time that you want to populate information. And how this begins is we're going to take an integer, total minutes. We're going to parse this from a float to an int, and we're going to divide it by 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour, okay? So total time equals total time divided by 60. That gives us an hours. But then we take the minutes is equal to the total amount of time, and then that little squiggly mark, let's make it a little bigger because it might be hard to see. And it's working, right? It might actually be even harder to see. Let's make it even a little bigger. Okay, that doesn't seem like that's getting any bigger, is it? See, I'm trying to find on your screen compared to mine, and it doesn't seem like it's very big. Solution window, can we can I close my solution window now? Or is it going to be preview? How do you... I knew there... See, I went and rebooted and stuff like... Oh, there we go. So properties, we don't need this. Close it. Ah, there we go. Looks much, much bigger. Okay. So minutes, total minutes divided by, well, it's the little squiggly thing, by 60. Okay. So, and that gives you your minutes. The hours is with the total time, because we start off with the hours anyway. But the thing is, this time since the level was loaded, it tells you when the level has been loaded, not the entire program. So every time you load up a level, you're going to populate this variable and set it. Okay, which, I mean, granted, it's not the greatest solution for that one, but I want the total amount of time where we're inside of a level playing versus when the program starts, because that's kind of dumb, right? I mean, if I did something with time and when the program started and all that, it wouldn't be as accurate because I want actual play time, if that makes sense. But it's kind of irrelevant. We've got our function here, which pretty much does exactly what it looks like. It takes our stuff, makes a new line, plus this garbage, plus this garbage, plus this garbage, and it's just basically parsing it out to a text. Now this little squiggly, two little squigglies and a slash mark and end, that's for a new line. Okay, I forget always. I'm bad about naming conventions on the thing. I call them squigglies because I ain't know, but whatever you want to call them, go for it. Okay, but this is how I keep making new lines and populating it into the little square box. Then, you know, we've got our string is equal to all this stuff. Okay, but then we also got to push it into the text, right? Because that's how it works. Now this is all protected and stuff. Okay, this always exists right here because it's a regular C# class. Okay, so we don't have to worry about this ever being null right here. Okay, and we're going to go over here to character info. Okay, which inherits from character object. This is where the visual stuff comes into play, like the text boxes and stuff like that. This is actually on the UI itself, okay? So it goes in the start and it's virtual, so we can override it and everything, cool like that. We tell it to set the time because it's the start of the level. Okay, because the UI only needs instantiated one time, right? And the character UI, this static right here, this protected static, is equal to this, okay? Which this is going to be important later on. And I didn't want to make something on this class right here, because I may not ever want to populate this or even have this exist. I definitely don't want this to majorly exist all the time, because what if I'm going to some kind of data class where I need to know how long this guy's in the main menu or something like that, or I want some form of menu class right here. I don't want all this other junk on here. So that's why I did it that way. So we do the time set, and we set the variable for the static reference. Now this onEnable function is really weird, okay? And you're probably looking at this. Well, pTextBox, it's serializable, okay? This text box is serializable, so it exists already, and we just fill it in, right? Wrong. Well, when onEnable gets called, the way Unity works, okay, is every text component and all that stuff, it has to instantiate memory for it to exist. Throw it into memory so that way Unity can access it. Now, we don't have really any control over when the UI elements actually exist in memory, okay? You may think they exist already because you've got them drug into the scene and stuff, but that's not necessarily true. That's only for the editor stuff. When you start up the level, all the UI elements and everything else, they have references, but they're not instantiated fully into the scene yet until Unity goes, hey, the engine runs, here's all the text components I need to instantiate, here's all the meshes and the visual stuff that I've got to start rendering, right? Well, it's not necessarily true that this text component is going to exist. This could fire off before or after this call. So we always, on the onEnable step, which is very, very early, okay, we make sure this is not null, because automatically our UI is going to be on at first, but it's going to automatically be shut off anyway, because the player never wants to start the level and then have a big old menu in his way, right? That would just be irritating, and go, well, I died, reload, now I got a menu, I got to get out of the menu and then do this, and that would be frustrating. I wouldn't like it. I'd be pissed. I'd be like, how can we shut this thing off? Can I hack this game or something so that I don't have to look at this stupid menu every time? And, you know, if I don't like it, I'm sure another player is not going to like it. So we always make sure this is null, and the menu is shut off in the beginning anyway. But because we have all this referenced and everything, it's going to be filled in so other scripts, like the little player that's walking around, can manipulate stuff if it needs to. Now, in the onEnable step, we call this build text, okay, which we've already talked about, because what it does is it just builds this stuff right here, this build text right here. This is what it builds. It does this information. So it's not that big of a deal. But because we're overriding and everything, we could need some form of other functions. So we just call it this way. But because this one has, we call it on the onEnable step, we don't actually technically have to have this here, but I did it just for a visual thing, because if you see this and don't see this, you may not know how it works, okay? So we're going to use the base version of this. I could slap the function in here and everything else and not have this line, but I didn't think it would be necessary. And this function has to exist for all of them anyway, because every character we have with different variations that the player can choose is going to have some form of text, for their character, or some form of information. I could see it coming. So it's got to be in the base, some form of base version that everyone has access to. And we still have the choice of overriding it in another way. Now the set icon right here, I have this here just because I have these private, so they can't directly manipulate it. They have to go in a function right here. And the reason why I did it that way instead of just going in the other class and go, character function, do this, do this, do this, I want to just be able to call the function, and if I need null checks or anything like that, like if character image equals null, then we return, but beforehand we go debug log error character image is null, and this is a big mistake. And there you go. Now, and you're probably wondering, well, why don't you just do it in your other class? Well, here's the thing. If I do it in this one, when I go into the next class, which is the one that's actually attached to the player, guess what? I don't have to write these stupid null checks every single time I create one of these classes. I can do a sprite variable and then call on start override thingy character UI, which is our static reference, right? Here for the UI element stuff, and I can call the function set icon to this.soldier. It can call this function. It doesn't care if it's null or anything like that. It will always just send the variable. Okay. Now it's probably a good idea to do a null check again in a form of way here, which would be like this. Or con UI equals null, then boom. If it's null in any form of way, something went wrong, which makes this invalid. Or character image or sprite is null. Okay, and that gives us a null check. Of course, it'll run every time that a character is spawned into the world, but it's not that big of an operation. Okay, you're not doing it like 100 frames or some crazy stuff, right? It's not that big of a deal. So this soldier info just gets attached to the thing, and we inherit from character info, which I believe every class should have character info, and then you could just write your logic like in here. Now if you wanted different variances and stuff, all you'd have to do is go in here into the character info class and write other functions. And they can be regular functions, okay? They don't have to be anything special, just a public void, so that way you can access it inside this class. And just call character UI dot set party foul or set water contamination or something of that nature. It's not that big of a thing, right? And you're just basically building your own API. And when you're like character info, this can hold a lot of different variances of stuff. It's not super private. I'll put this private. It's not super fantastically like something that you have to worry about, right? Because anytime that you build something, you're not going to use every variable, but it's okay if it's there. As long as you're not running out of memory or anything like that, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay? You can have 100 different variables there. That's all filled in. Just because they're not all being used at the same time doesn't mean a bad thing. You're not instantiating and destroying memory every single frame or anything like that. So your garbage collection stays good. And memory is cheap. Most people run like 10 gigs or some crazy stuff. And, you might have like, maybe 3 or 4 bytes, I think it is, for a string. I mean, it's not exactly going to be something that's going to stop you until you get further in development. And then you're like, well, maybe I don't need this, or maybe I don't need that. And that's fine. But for the most part, she should work just fine for you. So there we are. We set an icon and everything's good. So, like I said, here's the script and all that good stuff. Now, I know it's been a while since I posted and everything else, and thanks for you guys' patience. I hope to get another video out probably in maybe, I don't know, 10 hours or maybe a day or so. But remember, I do have to go through every single script and see where we're at. So it's going to take a little bit of time because of a computer crash and stuff. But, that's life, guys. And I may have some videos on computer stuff in general, like building a computer or whatnot, like what to do, what not to do, help you guys out. Because not everybody is like super computer smart. So peace out, everybody. Take care and good night, and thanks for watching. This is War over and out.